Hi, guys. Today I want to do a little talk on mental health, specifically depression and anxiety, which are two things that I've had experiences with. And I believe it's two things that the majority of the population have had experience with frequently or even daily. And I just want to read this to you. I know all of you guys have seen this already, but I just want to read it. Our comprehensive review of the major strands of research on serotonin showed there is no convincing evidence that depression is associated with or caused by lower serotonin concentrations or activities. And it goes on to say most studies have found no evidence of reduced serotonin activity in people with depression compared to people without, and methods to reduce serotonin availability using tryptophan depletion do not consistently lower mood in volunteers. So it's coming to light more brightly than before, the fact that maybe depression isn't necessarily a chemical imbalance. I think that I just want to share my story living with something that most often causes people to suffer with chronic depression and anxiety, which is living with and dealing with a chronic illness, experiencing a chronic illness. So all of you know that I was diagnosed with autoimmune disease when I was 21, got very severe, led into organ failure, and I proceeded to have years on dialysis and 2 organ transplants, okay? It's not a coincidence that I sit here today and I can process and feel and think and even look the way that I do. Part of it is genes, sure, but the majority of my journey has been a consistent pace of effort and surrender around my condition. I have a friend who works in the healthcare field, and many moons ago, he showed me a scientific study saying that I think it was up to like 85% of patients that live with chronic kidney disease or organ transplantation, which is my experience, are on SSRIs and anti-anxiety medication consistently for the rest of their time with their transplant, and the majority of them don't even go back to work. So there's a debilitation, obviously, when you have a chronic illness, depending on the severity of it, but there's also a means of learning different ways and different tools to navigate the complex mental health challenges and emotional challenges that come along with a major chronic condition. Now, if you don't have an illness, you still have life, right? If you have an illness, you have that on top of life, which can make it complicated. But listen, nowadays we have many, many obstacles, perceived obstacles in our way that can cause mental health challenges. I mean, the list is endless. The list is endless, guys, and we're all susceptible to having mental health challenges, okay? It depends first and foremost on the characteristics and your specific persona, your specific way that you process information. To be reductionist, some people are overfeelers and very sensitive, hypersensitive, and tend to maybe over-respond and react at times, not having that maybe boundary system or filter system of knowing when to pull back. And then there are other people who just can, on the opposite end of the spectrum, completely check out with their feelings and avoid and just kind of like obscure and run and hide and just completely ignore. And even, these people can be called narcissists, right? At times, it's like they're just completely oblivious to anything that's going on that doesn't revolve them or their internal story. So first and foremost, my suggestion is do some self-inquiry. What kind of person are you? Do you feel your feelings? Are you hypersensitive, or do you tend to completely avoid your feelings? Because anxiety and depression doesn't discriminate what end of the spectrum you may be on. You may have a proclivity towards one over the other, depending where you lie as so far as feeling your feelings and permitting yourself to be in touch with yourself and your reality. It's good to just first understand, who am I? What are my proclivities? What are my tendencies? How was I always as a kid and growing up? Did I overfeel? Am I oversensitive? Or do I have to learn how to feel? And this is a very individualistic question, and you guys know that by just simply asking yourself, And then how you navigate circumstances, situations, feelings such as anxiety and depression. One thing that helped me so greatly was to never identify with my condition. And this wasn't to be woo-woo or to be, some sort of creative bypassing way of avoiding the reality. It helped me to not merge with the condition. And this was really profound for me as so far as shifting my conditioned state so I could enter into something that felt better. If I claim something, if I author it, if I say, I have depression, I have this, it just feels like there's no real alternative for me to even have a possibility of thinking or feeling any differently. So I stick myself in a particular box, in a hole, and I don't have permission to get out of it. So one thing that I came to realize along my journey was I had many mental health episodes, perceivably, right? I have times where I feel anxious, times where I feel sad or depressed or lonely or what. We all do. We all experience a range of feelings. But I think what happened, and they're coming to conclude, is that we want to diagnose and treat when things don't feel good as soon as possible. And even patients self-diagnose themselves. I have depression. I'm here at my doctor. I have depression, and, can I get some medication? For me, along my journey, not knowing if I was going to survive past 20, I learned to be better at sitting with things that were uncomfortable and sitting in a space of the unknown because I had to. I was forced to do this. I didn't have a choice. Most people have choices. And I think this is one of the reasons why in society we have a tendency to bypass things that are uncomfortable too quickly, because I believe there is immense lessons and knowledge and insight and wisdom from letting yourself be uncomfortable at times. And in fact, it has catalyzed the entirety of my body of work was my pain, was the things that I've been through that were completely debilitating and difficult. And if I would have numbed out or checked out or not been fully present based off of some sort of medication or treatment plan I was doing or whatever it may be, I wouldn't have been able to truly develop understanding and resilience in the way that I have. So I know, this video isn't to trigger anybody. I'm not here to tell anybody what they should or shouldn't be doing. I'm just telling you that better ways exist, and they're not being offered. And I think, in my opinion, it's harming more people than it's doing good. And we're starting to recognize this. And now what we have to do is actually, before we try new methods, is we have to be flexible in our belief system. If we're not flexible in our belief system to say, okay, this is what we thought was the best way, this was what we assumed was the best treatment protocols for these conditions, and now they're coming to conclude that they might not be, we have to first, sorry, that's my niece calling, my little baby niece. We have to first accept that might be the case and not feel like a victim to what we've been told and what we've been utilizing, and be willing to step out a little bit into that space of even trying. I can't say this is for everybody, but I do believe that a large, significant portion of the population can learn to self-regulate with more natural means with the right help. And we just have not quite caught up in our traditional model, beyond psychology, even in healthcare, with ways in which we can have this ritualized discomfort and sit and realize that we're made to feel many things. That our feelings are our greatest guidepost. And when we're not available for our feelings, things get confusing at some point. And you start to question a lot of things about your life, or you're just numbed out. So I just wanted to tell you guys that some of the things that I did to help me when I felt states or experienced periods of depression or anxiety was, first, I allowed myself to feel it. I didn't want to run or hide or resist it. That was one thing. Again, when something doesn't feel good, the first thing we want to do is, how do I self-soothe or make myself feel better? Sometimes you just have to accept what it is and not fight it. And for me, I am a feeler. I am one of those, sensitive individuals who loves and honors the information my body has. I'm a somatic experiencer. I always have been. Was a yoga teacher forever, so I'm very in touch with my feelings. And instead of demonizing it right away, I more or less sat and permitted myself to feel uncomfortable and admit I'm uncomfortable. And instead of trying to exit from myself, I went deeper into myself. And I just asked myself, what are you feeling? What are you thinking? What are you thinking that may be contributing to this feeling? What are you not seeing? And those required a lot of moments of quietness, solitude, contemplation, and again, more of a going inward and just being really gentle with myself, really compassionate and brutally authentic, and saying, what's bothering you? What's really bothering you? What are you afraid of? What's going on? And this ability to do this helped me to gain strength when these states would arise in the future. Because what would happen is when I gave my body permission and my mind and emotions permission to be what they were and to accept it and not fight it, I got information from that. And then I was able to shift out of that state. So then I would have periods where I would experience being low or anxious, but I knew that I always had I knew that it wasn't forever. So again, I didn't identify with it. I knew I could shift self-states. So every time I sat compassionately, I would eventually get a message and be able to do something. And very often it wasn't an externalized act. It was changing a belief I had or a thought I had within myself that really created the room and space for the feeling to transmute and release. Really amazing. I remember a specific time where I was feeling overwhelmed. I call it being in the dark forest. Several years ago, I was going through a really powerful dark night of the soul experience again. And I just let myself feel. And in that moment, something clicked within my mind, within my brain, within my thought process. And this, I'll be honest with you, this is what I said to myself. Stephanie, you can sit here and continue to think about this, which is causing this heaviness, this darkness, this feeling of being paralyzed in this situation. You can get some Ben & Jerry's ice cream and just go sit in bed or just lay in bed for the rest of the day and do nothing and just choose to be here. Or you can do something else. And I realized in that moment for myself that how I'm thinking in each moment is so powerful, and I have the choice to choose what I'm focusing on. And again, this was something that took me a little while to really fully embody, not just idealize, is I have a choice. I have a choice with what I perseverate on, what I think about, what I ruminate on. And when something feels that heavy, very often you can't. And in fact, in that moment, I had to laugh. I laughed at myself. I must have looked crazy because I didn't want to do something else. I recognized I had the choice, but I choose not to do something else to make myself feel better, and I chose to go lay in bed for the rest of the day. But at that moment, something really was very clear to me. Oh my gosh, I have a choice. I have a choice. And what's happening is when we're so consumed and we're so conditioned and we're so overwhelmed, we don't realize that we don't even have access to this choice. We just don't have access. And this is when we start to merge and we start to become that feeling. So just a little tidbit of something that really helped me living with experiencing chronic illness. I give quotation fingers because, not that I don't respect the fact that I literally do have a chronic illness, it's just I don't talk about it. I don't bring it up. I don't need to tell everybody about my experience. I don't need to tell everybody constantly about my journey because I realized my journey was there for me to learn and grow and heal. And when I constantly go back to live in it, it actually doesn't help me. It doesn't help me at all. It actually hurts me when I do that. So, the power of choice and the power for us to shift our belief systems and at least be open to trying something different. I mean, there are a million things we can do, guys, to help with our mental health. A million things. Diet, exercise, company. Are you around healthy people? Do you have healthy relationships? Do you have a job? Do you have money? Are you being supported? Taking a walk, meditating, praying, getting close to God. I mean, there are so many things that can help, but you're never going to eliminate and have perfect mindset all the time. It's just not human nature. So I think if we could just learn to traverse the sensations and the feelings that don't feel so good, we can learn how quickly we do actually have the ability to shift states, and how there's so much more that we have within our control than we actually believe. But we've been conditioned and indoctrinated by professionals to think otherwise at times. So we have to have a complete radical paradigm mind shift to be able to take this agency back, to realize that we're all a little bit of everything, right? There is more that you can do within yourself if you align your life a little bit better. So when these feelings do come up and these life events come up that are really challenging, you can be with it instead of escaping and numbing out from it. Thank you.